Okay, so I think we need to have a realistic video out there about the tax shock that may be coming or will be coming at the end of November for the budget. I think we can be under no illusions that it's going to be awful news for business owners, for the working person, and for pensioners alike. We're all going to get hit. It's obvious. Everybody talks about cuts, about taxes, and tough choices, and all the rest of that bollocks. But here's what nobody explains on the news. Basically, Britain's public debt sits at around 2.7 trillion, which is almost, very nearly, a full year's GDP. Now, obviously, France has just imploded in the last day or so. Macron's having a pretty bad time of it, by all accounts. And that is the shape of things to come for the UK. France is basically looking at an IMF bailout. The UK is probably about 7 weeks behind, right before Christmas, right before 2026. What a way to start the new year. And it sets the timetable for pain and misery. So today I want to show you where that money actually goes, who's going to pay, and how it is going to change your life, and fast. So public sector debt is close to 96% of GDP for this year. Its forecast is that it's going to stay high across the entire rest of the decade. So that's the backdrop for taxes and also for spending squeezes. So in layman's terms, what's happening is that interest costs on this debt at 96% start to crowd out other spending. It's an absolute avalanche of awfulness. It's an avalanche of woe. Basically, whether it's health, whether it's welfare, whether it's infrastructure, whatever it might be, this is where the pressure comes from, because the money to repay the debt needs to come from somewhere, so it's stripping those services bare. And that's why there's less money to, prop up the NHS. It's why there's less money to repair roads. Also, the fact that councils are very wasteful. Let's not make any mistake about that. They spunk money, they treat themselves, they spend it as if it's their own. We know this. That is a massive part of it as well. And post-pandemic borrowing, the cost of living interventions, all of this has massively hurt us. We have got an aging population in Britain. I mean, partly because young people can't afford to have children, let alone afford to rent a house. Why would they have kids if they can't afford to rent or even own a home? And that also leads to having no free income, which leads to investment shortfalls. So, the FTSE is failing as well in that regard. People haven't got free income to invest. So the trickle down, the effect is massive. It has a knock-on effect to every other part of the UK's economy. So there is a political reality to this. Now, all of the parties, they promise that services are going to get better, but the amount of debt that we've got really limits their choices. So you have to be very realistic with any political party as to what their policy toolbox can contain. It'd be very easy for a party to say, we're going to fix the NHS, we're going to fix education, we're going to fix the roads, we're going to fix businesses. They can't do all of it. They can't. They absolutely can't. There's no money to do all of it. So their toolbox has to concentrate really on the things that are most topical at the time, that are going to be most likely to win in the next election. Now, for somebody like Reform, obviously they've targeted immigration. That's their golden ball, if you like. That's what they've gone for. Because it's very topical. There's a lot of public angst. There's a lot of public unease. And because of that, it will garner them a massive swath of voters. So there are a couple of options. I mean, there aren't many, but there are a couple. The first one, obviously, is austerity. Now, austerity basically means cuts to programs. It's quick pain, and it's at the expense of a long political cost. So it's never a very popular option, although it will fix the problem. Option two is another very unpopular one, which is higher taxes. But the question there is who pays? Is it, as Gary's economics says, is it just the rich? Should the rich be the ones to pay? Do you tax them to the point just below their pain threshold where they'd want to move abroad and kind of do that? Do you tax them on land and housing and assets, or do you tax them higher on businesses, or all of the above, whatever it might be? Is that the answer? You need to work out who pays. It's all right saying higher taxes, but you can't tax people that are already paying taxes on everything at multiple points. You pay taxes on your earnings. You then pay taxes when you buy products and services. You pay taxes on interest that you get from earnings that you've already paid taxes on. That's messed up in itself. And then you pay taxes when you die. So you're taxed at multiple points. The same money gets taxed 3 or 4 times before it gets to you or before you get anything for it. So when you work out the real tax to somebody who's working, a working person on normal wages, like, 30k a year, 40k a year, when you consider what they pay in taxes, it's not 20%. It's not. It's more like 40, 50, even 60, depending on the services they buy and the goods that they buy, which is mental. And the UK is one of the worst offenders for this. So it's okay saying higher taxes, but you need to work out who pays this and how. You need to work out labour versus capital, VAT versus wealth. Are you going to use stealth taxes? Is the tax base going to be broadened to encompass a wider area of things they can tax? It's a minefield, and it's a massive hotbed for public dissent. Nobody wants to get taxed more. We're already taxed enough. And the third option is to hope that we grow out of it. But you can't. Without money, without people having money to spend money to make businesses more profit, there is no growth. There's no growth if you can't afford to put your heating on and you can't afford to go out and buy a meal at a restaurant or to treat your kids to a day out at, a theme park or something. There's no growth. There isn't. So the options are very limited. But it's all about the mechanics of who eventually ends up paying for this and at what cost. I think there needs to be a massive reform on how corporations, mainly big corporations, there needs to be a reform on how they get taxed and the loopholes that they use to avoid tax. Companies like Starbucks, companies like Amazon, it's all very well having 30 hubs in the UK and being the biggest online retailer with a massive monopoly on online retail, but if you're only paying $1 billion even in a year in taxes and your company's making hundreds of billions, how's that right? How's that okay? If that was a member of the public, they'd be investigated and thrown into jail. But because it's Amazon, because it's a corporate giant, they're okay. They're okay to do it. Starbucks, the same. Costa, the same. McDonald's, the same. So they need to look at how corporations are taxed, particularly where they've got land investment or, property investment in the UK. They need to look at high earners, but they need to do it in such a way that they don't drive them out of the country. That's the dumbest thing. You're driving away people that are responsible for massively propping up the economy, not just in terms of the revenue their businesses bring in and the taxes that they pay, but also on the properties that they own and the staff that they employ and the money that they put into the pockets of those people who then have to spend it in the UK. So by taxing high earners, you're ruining everything. Or by taxing them in the way that the government is proposing to tax them, they're ruining everything. So they need to look at how indirect taxes get targeted. The political economy of targeting the easy taxes just doesn't really work anymore. It's all right stripping pensioners of their money. That's great, but then what about then when pensioners can't afford to heat their homes, or they can't afford to live, or their pension isn't enough? It's ridiculous, and it needs a proper reform. So what are the telltale signs to look for in the coming budget? So you need to look for stealth levies. You need to look for thresholds, freezing or even reducing, because that's a sneaky way they get more tax out of you. You'll need to look out for higher national insurance. You'll need to look out for things like PRSI or PRSI-like contributions that get ring-fenced for cuts. And you need to look for cuts in discretionary budgets. What can you do? Well, for a start, you can check that your pensions are on track, check for tax-free allowances, plan for potential hikes, review your mortgage buffers, and protect your cash flow. There is no easy way out of this. There is no one-size-fits-all solution. And I think, to be fair, with Rachel Reeves's track record so far, she's probably not the person for the job. They need a body of people to look at this. I don't think one person is going to have A, the experience, and B, the wherewithal to actually get the UK out of this mess. I think the job of the Chancellor, I think the Chancellor needs to be a representative or the kind of figurehead for the role. But I think behind it, there needs to be an advisory board, people from all walks, like a Jedi Council. And then, that would be a better way to do it. Have more than one opinion as to the best way to go. Because let's face it, the last 18 months has been a car crash. I am quite worried about what's going to happen at the end of November. I'm not sure how it's going to affect me or anybody else. And all you can do is prepare. So get your emergency buffer in place. Get rid of any long-term debt that you've got. Get rid of any high-interest debt. Prepare for the worst. Build a buffer that can help you weather a storm, whether it's 3 months or 6 months, whatever that might be. It's an important thing to have. And look at tax loopholes that you can use. If the rich use them to save money, you can too. So look at overpaying into pensions. Look at using ISAs. Look at employer top-ups for pension payments. Make sure that you're getting it any way you can. What are your thoughts on this? What do you think the budget's got in store? And yeah, how horrific do you think it's going to be? Drop it in the comments, let me know. YouTube is going to put another video up there somewhere. It thinks you'll like it. You might not. It's out of my hands. Like, follow, subscribe, ring the bell, all that jazz. Another one tomorrow. Goldman, peace out.